Again, I want to thank you all for being here. What you've been through is something that is just look. We appreciate your courage. We appreciate your willingness to come here and take some of the questions you had to take. We appreciate it. And I'll recognize the gentleman from Arizona for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I get to my questions, I'm sad to see my colleagues aren't over here on the other side of the aisle, because I think it would be nice to see the application of us drilling the Tide Foundation in the same place that you are. That would be a wonderful conversation, I think. So, but thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for the question, for the opportunity. This is a serious issue in which the executive branch has abused its powers for political gain. My constituents in Arizona are mortified and angry. Congress must ensure that the investigation into the targeting of these groups is being conducted in a thorough, timely, and appropriate fashion. So I'm going to ask some questions very quickly to each of the witnesses, but I have a few to get through, so if you can keep it pretty concise, I think you'll be pretty self-explanatory. Would the witnesses agree, then, that the administration and the enforcement of the law should be done impartially and without regard to political affiliation?
Absolutely. The Constitution requires it. I agree.
Yes, sir.
So real justice should be blind.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Do the witnesses recall President Obama and Attorney General Eric Holder expressing their supposed outrage that the IRS would target organizations that do not share their political views?
Yes, sir.
Yes, May 15th.
Do you happen to share in their outrage?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
So do I. And so I did find it terribly ironic that the President and the Attorney General expressed such an apparent outrage over this type of behavior, only later to assign the task to an investigator that is biased towards the administration. Yes, Ms. Barbara Bosserman, one of the lead investigators, donated nearly $7,000 to the President and the Democratic National Committee. And while I believe in everyone's right, it's everyone's right to donate political donations, I do not believe that she is the best fit to lead in this investigation and could potentially embarrass her party or the man she wanted to be President. Some might say the Department of Justice agrees that Ms. Bosserman leading the investigation is inappropriate. The committee asked the DOJ to allow Ms. Bosserman to attend the hearing today, and the answered question was they refused outright. DOJ officials had the nerve to claim that making Ms. Bosserman available to the Oversight Committee was tantamount to the targeting of a Federal employee. The use of the word targeting was not incidental. The DOJ was explicitly attempting to draw similarities between the IRS targeting of conservative groups to the House Oversight Committee targeting Federal employees. To make such an assertion is to imply that the oversight inquiries are inherently partisan, and therefore the administration can and should refuse to provide witnesses to answer questions when called upon. So I ask you, witnesses, would you agree with that assessment?
Yes, that they were targeting?
Yes.
Yes, they're targeting, but they certainly targeted many of our clients and did.
But they're also trying to utilize it like that we in this committee are actually targeting Federal employees. I mean, you can see a very strong
They've twisted the statute. They've twisted the term.
It's actually, what they're doing is conflating two issues. Yes. One is the IRS engaged in a systematic targeting, acknowledged systematic targeting. The selection of the Department of Justice attorney to head the investigation, they're trying to turn the targeting because we raised the concern of bias, which, of course, as a defense counsel, in our particular case, or as the plaintiff in a lawsuit, and there's a Federal investigation, of course we're going to bring that up. So they're trying to turn what is an obligation of a lawyer to not have the appearance of impropriety, and they're trying to turn that as individuals on this committee targeting this lawyer, which has never been anybody's intent.
Yeah, I agree with you. So let me switch gears for a minute, because you just took me right to where I wanted to be. Do the witnesses happen to know whether it is legal or illegal for the for an IRS employee to target groups based on political affiliation or ideology?
They acknowledge, I mean, Congressman, as you know, the IRS, this is not a case where we're trying to figure out what the IRS did. They have said affirmatively, we targeted by name, we created a be on the lookout list, and they said we were wrong, that was incorrect, and, quote, we apologize. That's what Lois Lerner said.
Well, but then according to Steve Miller, the former commissioner at IRS, he absolutely said it's absolutely not illegal.
Yeah,
They made those very, very comments.
Yeah, well, I argued a case of the Supreme Court of the United States actually dealing with viewpoint discrimination, and all 9 justices said it was illegal.
Yeah. Well, that's why we have to rephrase the bureaucracy and the bureaucrats into in good behavior. I actually put a bill called the IRS Anti-Abuse Act, which would make and codify political affiliation or ideology as a protected class in the IRS, the Internal Revenue Code. It also expressly prohibits an employee from being threatened to audit an individual or a group due to arbitrary, capricious, or politically motivated reasons. Is it your recommendation that such provisions should become law?
I think so. I think right now the IRS is institutionally incapable of self-correcting, so legislative oversight is necessary.
And Congressman, I would like to add that I just received a text a moment ago in the recess from a person who said, I built a website for our local Tea Party group, and now I've been audited by the IRS. I've heard stories from people all over the country about having, for the first time in their lives, become somewhat politically active or active in advocacy activities, and suddenly they've been audited or their business has been audited. And I just have to think that this cannot be coincidental, and somebody needs to be doing the statistical analysis of those who have been selected for audit over the past 4 years.
Absolutely. I want to close real quickly, sir, for an indulgence. I would close by noting again that the IRS Commissioner has now approved $62.5 million in bonuses to the IRS employees for their work in 2013 to boost their morale. How absurd. I would say that those millions might be best used at the IRS to boost the ethical training and boost awareness of the United States Constitution. Thank you, sir. Yield back.
I thank the gentleman from Arizona, and we'll go to the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Bentivolio.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, and thank you, distinguished members of the subcommittee and those testifying before us today. Thank you very much. We appreciate hearing all these stories from our witnesses, and it's awful what has happened to you. And hearing you and your testimony, and those from my own district, it appears that the President has a war on the Constitution. You know, I always believed the IRS was supposed to be objective and treat everybody equally. But under this administration and IRS, I guess some groups are more equal than others. It has almost been 9 months since this has been made public, and we're no further along than when the initial report was released. Instead, we get typical Washington double talk, sidestepping the issue, happy talk, and verbal moonwalking. These individuals testifying before us today deserve to have action taken. We need to hold this administration and the IRS accountable, and I'm committed to making that happen. In the hearing that was held in May of 2013, I asked Mr. Schulman of the IRS numerous questions about the Constitution and Bill of Rights. I asked if IRS agents take classes on the Constitution or Bill of Rights, and he didn't know. Mr. Schulman is a lawyer, and I asked him if he knew the First, Second, and 19th Amendments. He told me he didn't have the Constitution memorized. That's pretty bad. I'm guessing, Mrs. Engelbrett, right?
Yes, sir.
Right? Thank you. I'm guessing you're all familiar with the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Can you tell me what the First Amendment is?
First Amendment gives us freedom of religion and freedom of speech.
Right, and a few others. How about Second Amendment?
Right to keep and bear arms.
19th Amendment.
That gave women the right to vote.
Favorite amendment. Yes. Do you think IRS agents should have a right or should have to take training in the Constitution and Bill of Rights?
Absolutely.
Now I want to ask you about Tea Party. I'm a member of the Tea Party, but I can't really say that because I've never filled out an application to join a Tea Party. Is that something, do you have to fill out an application to join a Tea Party?
No, Tea Party's a frame of mind.
That's right. You just show up and you listen to what they're saying, and if you agree with it, you know, you can join in the conversation, learn more possibly, or just leave, correct?
That's correct.
You're peacefully assembling to address some grievances and ask some questions. Because I think if you're like me, you felt something was wrong. Something was wrong in Washington, but you couldn't really put your finger on it. Is that a correct assumption?
That's absolutely the correct assumption.
That's,
and I assume that we could ask questions.
That's right, you can. And, you know, I was a former teacher. Kids would come in and ask questions. I never, I try to answer those questions as best I could, and if I didn't know the answer, I'll try to get the answer for him. Is that pretty much what you're doing?
That's what I'm trying to do.
Right, I understand. And in civics class, you remember civics class?
I remember
Teacher
when they
got
were in
up
our
there
public
in front
schools,
of the classroom, classroom for all kids from all kinds of backgrounds, you name it, and he or she, the civics teacher, said, "You have an obligation to get involved in what's going on in the world." Did you ever hear something like that or words to that effect?
That's how I was raised.
That's right. That's how you were raised. That's how I was raised, and so many other Americans. And now that you're doing that, the government, the IRS, OSHA, and I have no doubt, because I've experienced it myself, when my fellow teachers found out I was running for office with an R after my name, suddenly couldn't do anything right. Never got a complaint, and all of a sudden, I'm a conservative. I have a great belief that this country, that this country, how can I say this? The greatest thing about this country is our cultural, religious, and ethnic diversity. And, I believe the other side agrees with that, too. Unless, of course, you have an R or you're conservative after your name. Would you agree with that assumption?
I think it's a correct assumption that the best thing about this country is its people, and maybe we've lost our way for a little bit, but we're finding it back.
God bless you. Thank you for what you're doing. I just want you to know my office has a door that's always open. You're always welcome, as in anybody else. But feel free to stop in any time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it, and God bless you, all of you.
Thank you.
I thank the gentleman from Michigan, and I go now to the gentleman and friend from Texas, the Honorable Judge Poe.
I thank the chairman and the ranking member for letting me sit on the committee today. Ms. Engelbrecht, I have some questions for you. So short answers would work okay.
Okay.
Have you, after you started King Street Patriots and True the Vote, were you visited by the FBI?
Yes, sir.
Were you visited by the FBI terrorist squad, or whatever they call themselves, that investigate terrorists?
Yes, sir.
How many times did you have either meetings or conversations with the FBI?
There were 6 inquiries.
Were you visited by OSHA?
Yes, sir.
How many times?
Once.
The ATF?
Yes, sir.
How many times were you visited or audited by the ATF?
Twice.
And you were also visited by the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality?
Yes, sir.
The state agency of the EPA. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
The IRS, how many times?
2 personal audits, 2 business audits.
At some point, did you believe you were under some criminal investigation?
At some point, I didn't quite know what to think.
Did you come to me and ask for a FOIA request to see if you were being investigated criminally?
Yes, sir, I did.
And we got a response from the FBI.
Yes, sir, we did.
And they said what?
They said that they were not.
They were not investigating you for criminal enterprises.
Correct.
To your knowledge.
Correct.
Do you think that, well, let me ask you this. Were you, at any time after you started these 2 groups, harassed by so-called liberal or progressive groups?
Yes, sir, on a very regular basis.
And what does that mean, harassed?
Well, I think it can mean many things, but speaking falsehoods, bearing false witness, trying to take something like election integrity and turn it into something that divides us instead of unites us.
And in your opinion, were you harassed by legislators?
Yes, sir.
Do you believe that there should be a special prosecutor to investigate the IRS?
Yes, sir.
In 2013, on May the 14th, I sent Eric Holder a letter. Are you aware of the letter that I sent him asking for a special prosecutor and asking a bunch of questions about the IRS?
Yes, sir, I am.
I have not received a response from Eric Holder on these. Have you received a response?
No, sir.
Were you asked by the FBI, or the IRS rather, to produce all of the tweets that you ever tweeted?
Yes, sir.
Facebook posts?
Yes, sir.
Did you comply with that?
I don't do Facebook or Twitter.
The IRS, they wanted to know all the places that you spoke publicly.
Yes, sir.
Did they want copies of your speeches?
Yes, sir.
Let's get this correct. The the federal government wanted a copy of a citizen's speech in a public forum.
Yes, sir.
Did they want to know where you were going to speak in the future?
Yes, sir.
Did they want to know the names of the groups you spoke to?
Yes, sir.
Did they want the mailing list or the attendee list of the people that were in attendance at the places that you spoke?
Yes, sir.
They wanted the speech. They want to know where it was. They want to know what you said. They want to know who was there.
Yes, sir.
Do you find that a little oppressive?
Find it highly
Do
political.
you think that the United States Constitution lets the federal government swoop in and chill the right of free speech by demanding all of this information?
No, that's not what the Constitution was built to do.
I had a chance to be in the Soviet Union back in the 80s. The people were totally oppressed by government. They were afraid of government. They were afraid to say anything or write anything about government because government would punish them, take their job, put them in jail, harass them, take their money, all of those things. Did you ever think that we would see in the United States of America a government through its agencies, the IRS, the FBI, OSHA, EPA, ATF, take on a citizen trying to keep you from criticizing government? Did you ever think that you would see that in this country?
No, sir. I never thought that I would see that, but I do see it. It is happening, and I hope that the American public sees this for what it is.
The gentlewoman will suspend. The chairman is responsible under the rules of the House and the rules of this committee to maintain order and preserve decorum in the room. So we ask everybody abide by that. Go ahead, Ms. Engelbrecht.
I didn't hear your answer. I'm sorry.
My answer was no. I never believed that this could happen, and for many years I didn't want to believe that, by all appearances, what seemed to be happening was in fact happening. And it is my hope now that we don't gloss over these moments, that we see them in their fullness for what they are, because it threatens to undermine the very fabric of this republic, sir.
Ms. Gerson, did you ever think that the things that I have mentioned, that has happened to you and Ms. Engelbrecht, did you ever, as an American, think that you would see government swoop down and punish you for exercising the right to criticize?
Absolutely not.
How does that make you feel as an American citizen?
Angry.
And you testified that you don't think we're doing enough to solve this oppression.
Correct.
Lastly, if I may, Mr. Chairman, my grandmother, who was my most influential person, Democrat, by the way, to my friends over there, used to say there was nothing more powerful than a woman that has made up her mind. I think we have three of those women right here today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your fight, because you see, America is worth fighting for.
Amen. Amen.
And I'll yield back.
I thank the gentleman. I walked in right at the end of that, what sounded like a great presentation. I call it Moms on a Mission. You got moms on a mission. Look out. Good things are going to happen. So I echo what the gentleman from Texas had to say. Mr. Cartwright?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I have sat through today's hearing, and first of all, I want to say I appreciate all of you coming. Your viewpoint is appreciated. It's understood. I wish we had opposing viewpoints here today for a fuller discussion, but that doesn't discount the value of your viewpoint. Now, one thing I wanted to raise was I think one or more of you have brought up the idea that people have said that there's no evidence of wrongdoing at the IRS, that there's no evidence of corruption, or however you want to say it, and that is inappropriate because the investigation is ongoing. Which one of you said something like that? I think, yes. Professor Sekulow, I think.
Mr. Jay is fine.
It's a good point, Jay, and it's something that we hear both ways. We as Americans are used to TV reporters putting microphones in prosecutors' faces and investigators' faces, police chiefs' faces, asking for details of an investigation. And what is the phrase that they all intone? Always. I can't comment on an ongoing investigation. And as Americans, we understand that because you can prejudice an investigation if you release details, if you give up clues, if you can let guilty people off the hook if you do that, if you comment on ongoing investigations. So I think we as Americans understand that, but I think it works both ways, doesn't it? Before you impugn an investigation, before you condemn an investigation for using shoddy practices or unfair viewpoints or whatever it is, before you attack an investigation, by the same token, you want to wait till the end of it to see how it comes out. And to that point, I want to ask. Do any of you have information that this investigation is over, that it is complete at this point? If you do, weigh in.
Let me say from my perspective, because we've been involved in the situation since its outset. With regard to the investigations, two aspects. There is an ongoing Department of Justice investigation, and then, of course, you have the committee's investigation. On the Department of Justice investigation, I think it's important to point this out. The wrongdoing by the IRS was acknowledged by the Internal Revenue Service, and for that reason, Congressman, it's different than a situation where you're trying to determine if, in fact, there was wrongdoing. Here, the wrongdoing was acknowledged by the IRS. They offered, as I said, the apology for it, but they acknowledged they did inappropriate targeting. That's number one. So the agency.
I want to say, Professor Sekulow, we on this entire committee on both sides were in a high state of outrage when we first found out about it. But the answer is that no, we have not heard from the Justice Department that they are complete in their investigation. And I want to make the point that maybe, just maybe, it would make sense for all of us as Americans to step back and let them do their work before they attack. Before we attack their methods or their conclusions.
When perhaps
I only have limited time.
I understand.
The second point I wanted to make was there have been references to Ms. Bosserman, Barbara K. Bosserman, who was invited to come but did not come today. It is highly irregular. It is really unprecedented to haul an investigator in before a congressional committee in the middle of an investigation for the very same reasons I just discussed, because it can prejudice an investigation, because it can really foul it up. And that's why we don't do that. But some of you, one or more of you, have said that Ms. Bosserman was leading the investigation. And I wonder, is any of you privy to who's leading the investigation? Because Attorney General Holder testified, I believe it was in the Ways and Means Committee. No, I believe in the Senate. He testified that Ms. Bosserman is not, in fact, leading that investigation. So if one or more of you is privy to information that she is, in fact, the lead on this investigation, now is the time to share your information with us.
Well, let me do that. To clarify this for you, Congressman, our office, and I believe we're the only one so far, had a conversation with the Department of Justice. The highest-ranking official on that call was Ms. Bosserman. And again, I want to be very clear, and I appreciate you giving them a moment to do this. We are not disparaging her credentials at all. It's raised issues, significant issues. But I also think it's important to point out that with regard to her relationship within the Department of Justice, she's a senior official in the Department of Justice and the highest-ranking member of the Department of Justice that we've worked with. So what you're saying is
that you suspect that she may be in the lead of this investigation.
No, we were told she is.
The truth of the matter is that you don't know. And in fact, Attorney General Eric Holder has said that she is not. So do you really mean to come in here and call the Attorney General of the United States a liar?
With due respect, no one has called the Attorney General of the United States a liar. What I have said is this. We have been told that the highest-ranking official at the Department of Justice, Congressman, is Ms. Bosserman. And that is what we've been told by the Department of Justice.
Mr. Sekulow and Mr. Cartwright, the Attorney General didn't say that she was not the head of the
That's right. He did not know her, is what he said.
He said she's part of the team. What Mr. Sekulow has said is she's the highest-ranking official part of the team, which would lead one to believe she's heading the investigation. Plus, we have what took place in practice. People we have interviewed, the committee staff has interviewed, which your minority staff was in those same interviews, told us the person asking them the questions when Justice Department interviewed them was Barbara Bosserman.
Correct.
So any logical person, anyone with a brain can figure out she's heading the investigation. The only one who won't admit that is the Attorney General and the Democrat members of this committee. Anyone can figure that out. Of course she's heading the investigation. And oh, by the way, and this is the underlying point, she gave $6,750 to the President and the Democrat National Committee. And she should have recused herself by the plain language of the ethics rules in the Justice Department. And you can defend her, and you can send me a letter and say she shouldn't come here. Don't subpoena her. Don't bring her in to answer the questions. You can do all that. And you can also say no liberal groups were invited. In fact, I would ask you, tell me one liberal group you wanted to invite.
Let me back up a second.
Do you have a name of a liberal group you'd want to invite here? Tell me one liberal group that's targeted that you know the name of that you want to invite here.
The point I'm trying to make.
I can point to 41 Mr. Sekulow knows. I can point to True the Vote. I can point to the Wetumpka Tea Party in Alabama. Tell me one you can point to.
It's your opinion is well taken. The opinions of the testifying witnesses are well taken, but that's what they are. They're opinions about who's leading this investigation. And we here in the Oversight and Government Reform Committee believe in dealing in facts.
Mr. Sekulow,
I yield back my time.
Congressman, Congressman, it's a serious charge. We've been told, maybe you know something I don't. We've been told that she is the lead for the Department of Justice on these investigations, including not just with witnesses that we may produce, but that you all have produced. So maybe they have told you something we don't know, or maybe they're not telling us the truth. And also, I just would add the point here. You talk about prejudging an investigation. The President of the United States said not one smidgen of corruption.
That's what I said leading into it. It's fair to criticize him for that, but by the same token, let's all stand back and wait till the end of the investigation and reach a measured and reasoned evaluation.
Congressman, I don't have the luxury of standing back. I am in federal court against the IRS. I don't have that luxury. I've got 41 clients. I don't get the luxury to sit back.
I want to thank all of you again for being here. I know the Engelbrechts have a gentleman from Texas recognized.
I ask unanimous consent to insert into the record the 3-page letter I sent to Attorney General Eric Holder on May 14, 2013, asking for a special prosecutor, where he did not respond. I ask unanimous consent.
Without objection. I appreciate that, Judge. Again, the Engelbrechts have a plane to catch. I know. Cleta, you have one?
I have one
quickly?
question. I have one question.
Go ahead.
I think there's a difference here between, and with all due respect to the ranking member, there is no question that these groups, my clients, many more people, hundreds of groups involving thousands of citizens. There is no debate about the fact that they were subjected to a process which was instituted within the IRS in late 2009 or early 2010, which changed the historic procedural manner that is published on the website of the IRS, that is the publicly available process that is supposed to be followed in reviewing applications for exempt status. There's no question that that happened. So what I think when you're saying the question of what wrongdoing, that is the wrongdoing. We are supposed to be a nation of laws. And the rule of law is that the process is published. Anybody who applies is subjected to the same process, the same procedures, and something changed inside the IRS. And that happened. There's no debate about that.
Right.
And that was wrong. Now, whether it rises to a criminal offense, I've mentioned several things that are criminal offenses. Those are the things we take exception to, that the Justice Department needs to be investigating, that they really haven't to our knowledge or satisfaction, and people are calling for the appointment of special counsel. But let's not go away from this hearing with any debate about whether or not the facts exist as they exist, which is that hundreds of grassroots organizations were subjected to an entirely new review process created in Washington and inflicted upon them by politically powerful people.